All right, thank you everyone for joining us for Youth Career Pathways Technical Assistance webinar. This is Natasha Pelger with All My WorkNet. And if you haven't already done so, you can go ahead and check in to let us know that you are here. And then what we're going to do today, we're going to take a look at the updates to the Worksite Placement tool that's available for you. And then we are going to take go over a couple things just as like reminders as far as entering services, and a reminder about how the process goes with entering, doing the application, and then some troubleshooting type pieces. So we will go ahead and get started. If you haven't checked in, don't worry. I will go ahead and make that available to you at the end of the webinar. And if I forget, just remind me. Feel free to remind me in the chat. Okay, I'm sharing my computer screen now. And our first topic for today is the Worksite Placement tool. And that is available for you on, it's in All My WorkNet. We have some updates that have been made, and so you should be able to go ahead and start using this. When you go to, I want to show everybody just so we all start at the same place. Go to your All My WorkNet YACP Partner Guide. So you can click on the link to go to production. We also have instructions that are available on this page, and we have full list of resource instructions, as well as this video will be archived and put under the training materials and videos. So I'm going to go into test, so you could click on here to go to your production area, and then I would default to my list of Youth Career Pathway customers. And then if I wanted to do Worksite Placement, one of the first things you need to do is to set up a worksite. So to get to the Worksite Placement, I select this little icon. It says Worksite Placement. Depending on your screen resolution, it might actually have this all spelled out. But as the device gets smaller, then we switch over from using the full words to icons down to the menu item. So I click on Worksite Placement, and I'll default to the Worksite Placement tab. I could look at the employers or go straight to payroll, but I'm going to default to Worksite Placement tab. If you have access to multiple projects, then you'll be able to select which project that you're working with, as well as if you have access to multiple locations or grantee locations, then you would be able to narrow down by that type of by that location as well. Within that location, if you have different types of worksite placement experiences, you can narrow down to just the locations that have work-based learning. So in this case, I'd have one, permanent employment. You can see my listing of people or my locations. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it as open for, these are all of my test areas that I have added employers for my Youth Apprenticeship, Youthville, Plain County test site. These are the ones that are already added. I'm going to go in and pretend like I'm adding a new site. So I can go to Add Employer. It's going to give me a listing of the employers that I already have. So I could select something that was existing, or I can add a new employer. and I can put in all the required information. Okay. And adding in one contact person. Whenever you're setting it up, all you have to do is enter one contact person, and if you'd like to add more, you can add more after they're already added. So you can go to the next step. And whenever you're adding people or you're going through this process, you can see your progress along the top. Once you've completed something, you'll see it's check marked as green. Whenever you're on that section, it's blue and it has magenta. And if you haven't gotten there yet, then it's gray. So you can see that I don't have any work sites available, so I can just add a new work site. And if I thought, oh, well, wait a minute, the employer that I just added is the same as the work site, then I just check that box. And it populates all of the information that I had already entered in. And I can just continue on. And then I can add in my stock code. I can use the same title as that's associated with stock code, or I can change it and add in my description, my employment type, if I'm going to get paid anything for that employment, and my start date. Oops, planned finish date. Okay, and so I have just added my area. So I'm going to go ahead and filter this back down to the area that I just did. So my test item is, you can see that I added test mark, which is the item that I just did. And you can see the work site is the same. And then you can see the job title and the number of openings. Let's say that I had this as only one opening, but I needed it to be, or if I put 10 in there and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't have 10 openings. I only have 2. I can save it, and I can go back. This filters here. And you can easily update that job opening. I know that was a question that some people had in the past. But how do you update those job openings? You can just click on that link and update the job information. If you need to update work site, you can click on this to update the work site. You can click on the employer to update the employer information. If I want to add customers, I simply click on Add Customers, and I have my listing of customers. Once I select that person, then I see the job title, the description of the job, and the employment type. It populates the person's name. We have the minimum wage for placement. This is required for some programs. So if you have a minimum wage, we have it at this level because the minimum wage can depend on, your area, and also, the age of the person, and there's different criteria that can impact the minimum wage. So we have it at the customer level where you can enter in the minimum wage. If you don't have it, you can just leave it as 0. We have the hourly wage for the placement. If you have for this program, I'm assuming everybody's would be the subsidized, so you would say that you would have the subsidized wage would be the same as the hourly wage. And you'll notice that the unsubsidized, or the employer's wage match, would be, it automatically calculates. So if the employer is picking up half of the hourly wage, then you just put in whatever you're paying as far as the hourly wage, and it'll calculate the employer's wage. So you select the position type, and then you'll select if it's started. If it's not started, we're going to have the programmer change this so where it says it'll be not started / planned. So if it's going to start in 2 weeks, you can go ahead and enter it in and then change the status to started. We have the planned, not started, on hold, successful completion, unsuccessful completion. So those are the different status areas that you can have. Go ahead and enter that information. And so now I have added that person to the worksite placement and filter it down. And my test march right here, you'll see that I had 2 positions open, and I've used up those number of openings, and I have this person marked as the part-time position filled. If I click on the link, then I can see who that person is. And if I needed to edit it, then I could just easily go in and edit that information. Let me go back to the groups of people because I want to show you that person. Actually, go to this person. I'm going to hit search. And if I go to worksite placement, then I can see all the different, obviously this is a test person, so they have lots of information in there, but I can see that I just added this test march. I have the position type. If I needed to update it, I can just click on that link right there and update that person's information. Now you'll see that we have the 30, 60, 90, 180, 270 day check boxes. The worksite placement tool is a global tool, and it's used for certain projects that's required. At this point in time, there's not anything to say that you have to check these boxes, but they are available to you. So if you wanted to save, indicate that you had checked up on this person, just to say that they're still in their placement. And you want to verify if they have any wages or if anything has changed, you can click on the link and it just says, I reviewed this information and made sure the information is current and accurate. You say agree, and it just saves that information. And then you can see a history of the different changes that have been made to this person. So you can see when the follow-up was completed if you would like to do that. I saw that there were a couple questions coming in. I'm not sure if Tammy or anybody have responded to them, so let me take a quick look at this. Okay. Let's see here. What if we don't know the end date? That's okay. You can go, one of those questions is, what if we don't know the end date? Originally we had put this here just to, put it out there as when we could display this information for an automatic display. You can just put it out there a year in advance. It's fine. Do we need to go back and update the information if we already have people placed at worksites? No. If you're talking about this change right here, you don't have to worry about it. It'll be okay. I mean, if you're in there and you want to update it, then that's fine. But for this program, it's not critical. If the placement is an unpaid internship, then you can just make the hourly wage 0. Then wouldn't our case notes encompass information on work experience program if they're still working, changed work sites, or ended work sites earlier than anticipated? Yep, that's what I was saying for these 30-day, 60, 90, 180, 270. That is something that's required for another program. And so, like I was saying, you don't have to do that for this particular program, but it is available if you want to. And whenever, just so that those that aren't familiar with how we do things with WorkNet, is we try to build global tools that whenever we're making tools that are available for a particular program, it's just not isolated into that one little world of that program. And we want to make them available to be used across programs. And so we always try to do those, make updates in a way that can be of benefit to multiple programs. So some of these updates, are it's good information that you could be able to collect, and it can be used in different ways for different programs, but it does impact the overall global tool. But we don't have all the restrictions and the rules and everything set up in place that enforce you to have to use some of these items. Okay, will our worksite sync over to IWDS? No. We do not populate, we can't populate IWDS with those types of services. At least not at this time. See Stephanie typing. Okay. So the other piece, so I showed you how to employment history. The employment history on IWDS. Yes. And then Jim and Tammy, I'm not sure. Really, mute you, Tammy. This might be you, Jim. I'll unmute you guys. Whatever the, what's required in IWDS. I know with this program, well, with these programs, what a lot of times that it's used for is whenever you have like these subsidized wages, so you're paying part of that that wage or that entire wage for that worksite placement. Tammy has used it in the past because we have a payroll upload. And so what happens with the payroll upload is you type in some dates. Let's see, I'm on test. Let me go ahead and select the information. And then I can download a template. And then whenever I download this template, which is downloading, I need to open it. Whenever I download the template, it's going to populate with my people and with their work site and with the different wages that they would be receiving. Oh, am I still working on it here? And then what I would just do is fill out the hourly wage for each of those people. And it's coming up. My computer's slow. And you'll upload that information into the system, and then Commerce can review it and approve that information. Here we go. Here it is. So you have your organization, your work site, the WorkNet ID, their information, and all you have to do is update the hours worked with whatever the hours are that they worked. You and then you save it, and then you upload that payroll template, and it'll put the information into the system so that Commerce can, review those payments and then approve them. And Tammy, were you getting ready to say something?
Hi, and this is Tammy, and this is specifically used for if you are the paid work, so if you're doing paid work experience, you're the employer of record, and so you're the actually one that's doing the payroll for these individuals. So we use this for the paid work experience, and what Natasha showed you before is how you associate a customer with an employer. And then based upon that association, then it pulls over this information into that spreadsheet. And it's really a simple process. It's just a matter of adding, like Natasha said, the hours that they worked and then uploading that back in. And then what we can do at Commerce is compare that upload to what you're reporting in your GRS system. And for paid work experience, there is FICA and Workman's Comp that's required. SUTA, for training programs, you don't have to do SUTA. So then what we can look at is look at what you've reported in WorkNet as far as your payroll uploads and the expenditures based upon that, and then compare it to what's in the GRS. And the only difference should be like the FICA and the Workman's Comp would be the difference between the two numbers. So it's a good check for us.
So if they are doing an unpaid experience, then do you still want them to enter this information into the worksite placement?
I mean, I think with unpaid work experience, it's good to, yeah, you wouldn't do necessarily the payroll download because they're not getting paid, but you would want to associate them in the work placement area with that employer, so that we know that they're doing an unpaid work experience. But there wouldn't be any payroll associated with that specific customer.
And then what's the requirement for when they do that in IWDS? So if I'm a CBO and I have people that are doing an internship, unpaid work experience, then I can add them into Illinois WorkNet just to document their number of hours that they, or document that they were participated in this work experience. And then do they need to add a service into the service plan to request the career planner to enter that into IWDS?
Correct, yeah. The paid work experience, unpaid work experience, internships, all those are services that record in IWDS.
Okay.
And for participant stipends, I'm looking at that question. This is specifically for paid work experience. Participant stipends, I want to check with Chuck Dooley, who's our fiscal officer, because they may come out of a different line item than paid work experience, because generally paid work experience is a line on its own. And then, but I need to check on stipends and see how those are reported.
And then can you take the next one too, from Stephanie?
Sure, you bet. Already being an LWIA, do I need to enter information since my fiscal department is entering the information? So Stephanie, you would still, if you're doing paid work experience, you still want to enter this information into the WorkNet system for your paid work experience. Your fiscal department's going to obviously do what they do, which is, payroll, and then, they'll be documenting that on their general ledgers and trial balances and everything. But you still, for paid work experience, you still want to document this in WorkNet.
Okay. So getting to the point that where, let's say that you have a person that you had, you entered them in an internship, unpaid, and now they need to go ahead and document that and request that that information be entered into IWDS. I'm going to go to my group. We're going to go to Benjamin.
Natasha, I'll just answer Stephanie's real quick, too. She says, I was talking about the payroll template. Yeah, the payroll template you'll download, and then you can get the working hours from your fiscal office because they would be doing the payroll. So just you'd work with probably Debbie in your fiscal office to get the number of hours worked for your customers, and then you just have to enter that in the payroll. And if you have any questions on that, Autumn's been doing that with the EPIC program, so she can assist you with that also.
And there's one, if for clarity, even if wage stipends are not paid by grant, we need to document it in IWDS. That's a yes, right?
And Jim, what is that? What is WIOA policy on that?
Service is going to be paid for out of IWDS, out of the WIOA grant, then the service wouldn't have to be recorded on that. It'd still be, to me, they'd be wanting to explain in their service strategy how this is working, because typically I would think these would get funded through through their WIOA grant, but it sounds like they're maybe working with a partner that's funding that. Maybe that's the situation. But if it's not funded by the WIOA grant that they have, then they wouldn't record that service.
So maybe if we do two things here, and I guess we probably need to talk about this a little bit more. So if they're not funded, if they're not paid for out of the WIOA grant, then you can still put them in the worksite placement tool, and then you have it documented in there with all the information associated with it. Currently, how we have it for adding services is that if it's a WIOA-funded service and it needs to be an IWDS, you can have it as work-related service, I'm assuming. You say, yes, it's WIOA-funded, and then you can say what it is. Paid work experience, the apprenticeship, and then we're going to change this to not started, and it'll be planned. So you can either put it as it's planned. If you put it in that it's planned, then you can just add it into the services section and start building out that plan. It doesn't go anywhere. But if you change this to started, it's going to tell you that it's going to send a message to the WIA career planner. You can say for paid work experience, we're doing 15 hours a week, and this is all the notes that I have, and then I'm going to submit my request. And then you can see that this has been sent to IWDS. And the way it's sent out is that there's one email that goes out to whoever is identified as the contact, the OWIA contact person up here. So if there's an OWIA contact person, then that person will receive the notification once a day that has all of these where it says request sent, and it'll send them an email summary with the people that need to have their information updated, as well as the information that was entered in when you put this information in here. And so once they update that in IWDS, then the system will sync overnight, and whatever has been entered in from IWDS will populate this area. So if you come back the next day and it's not here, then you can make the assumption that it's not been entered into IWDS yet. Or, if you see it, then maybe they have the start date as 3/2. It's not going to sync up exactly. So either you could ask them to change the start date to 3/1, or you can just simply remove that request and keep the IWDS line item. You cannot remove IWDS items. Those are coming from IWDS. If you know that an update was made to IWDS and you don't want to wait for the overall night sync that'll pull in everything, you can click the button right here, and it will it will sync to IWDS at that moment, just for this one individual.
Natasha, could we walk through a scenario, because I know this was one of the questions, where they may have a paid work experience and the career navigator may be facilitating that, but the actual wages are not paid out of the grants. So they would add a service that is not a WIOA-funded service.
Okay, so, well, assuming that they're still putting them into the worksite placement, but you can add that into this plan, you can, because your customer will be able to see this plan of what they're planning to do, and they'll be able to see the status of their plan. So you can have, let's say we have the work-related service, and this is not WIOA funded, and if I want to say, this is my paid work experience, I can either schedule it, again, this is not, means it's not started, it's planned. I can change this to start/open, and I can say your paid work experience, this is what we're expecting you to be for the month of March with 15 hours a week, and this is all the information about that, and I hit save. And then you can see that this line item is counted towards services that you're providing for this customer, and you can see the start date, the status, end date, and then you can see the source is my WorkNet. Now with each of these, I didn't go into this in great detail. I actually didn't go into the details at all, but you can, for each of these areas, you can put the service provider. I don't really think that this is necessary. Or Tammy, do you want them to fill out anything in service provider since they'll have all the employer information and the worksite placement?
It's probably not appropriate for paid work experience, but if, in this particular case, say AmeriCorps is paying for the wages, in the notes you could just put AmeriCorps is, covering wages for this worksite placement in the notes section.
That would be in this note section. Okay.
Yeah. And then, so that identifies that. Yeah, I mean, obviously your staff is probably, staff costs related to this because you're, potentially setting up the work sites, and but the actual wages would be coming from a different funding source.
So
and in that particular case too, just so the source is WorkNet, so that would not be transferred over to IWDS, correct, Natasha?
Correct. We would not be sending a request to IWDS. This just stays within WorkNet, and there's no request sent to IWDS. It's just recording the fact that you provided this service. So have we covered the different scenarios that are related to your work site placement? Are there other scenarios that were not discussed or we're not thinking about? And if you don't have them right now, then that's fine. You can just make sure you contact either, Tammy or Tara, or, Natasha. Tammy and Tara are probably the main contacts for your program questions. And then, Jim or I would be your how does this work in IWDS and on my WorkNet type questions. Okay. I see Tara's typing, so okay. What sites are providing unpaid? Okay. You can go ahead and okay, if so, I understand correctly. If an employer is only so if I understand correctly, if the employer is the only individual paying the client in its permanent employment, I would enter the pay rate in the unsubsidized area is where you would pay, where you would put 0 for subsidized. I'll show you. So if I'm not paying anything and my employer's paying everything, I can say that the training wage match is 0. And when I hit 0 that I'm not paying anything, it'll automatically, oops, I thought I hit enter, darn it. Back to that. Here. And then you can see it changes automatically to the employer's wage match, the employer's portion. Okay. Okay, there were a couple things that I just wanted to point out because some people have had questions about this topic I'm getting ready to cover. And I assume if one person, before I go into my next topic area, and now that I'm on my Benjamin Worksite Placement page, whenever the information is updated in Worksite Placement or payroll has been added, uploaded, then from the Worksite Placement piece of it, you'll see everything, as from each of those, like as a group, like for Payroll Upload, and you can see as a group which people are, associated with Natasha's tools and that type of thing. But whenever you are looking at their Worksite Placement page, I'm on a different guy, so sorry, this is Walter. And whenever a payroll is uploaded, whether you have, 1 or 3 or 5 or 20 payrolls uploaded, you'll have that history of the payroll upload for that individual on their individual pages. If you go into the Worksite Placement, you're going to see the payroll as an entire grouping, for that pay period. But when you go to the individuals, you can see the history of the individual payrolls that have been uploaded and approved for that particular individual. Okay, so now I really am getting back to my original area here. Okay, so we have had some questions about the suitability page, and that it says that I can't recommend a person for enrollment. Now, if the process is supposed to be that the person would complete the application, and then you would go to suitability, you would make sure that they meet all the WIOA eligibility requirements and that you have all the information. And again, for each of these items, you can see the show area, and it'll tell you the different documents that can be used for that. If anything else is and if any other barriers are required, and the different policy that's related to those items. So it's supposed to be a quick reference for each of these types of barriers, so you can easily collect that information if you're not 100% sure on what can be used for documenting that kind of barrier. And then you want to make sure you have all that. You want to look at their employment goals and have a conversation with them about, is this the type of program? This is a program that we have that's been recommended for you. Are you interested in this program? This is the information that's related to that program, blah, blah, blah. And if they are not, you can just say they're not suitable or they decline to participate. But it's at this point in time And we want to say that, at this point in time, this person would be an inquirant, okay? Because again, I didn't choose the best test person, but this would say inquirant because this person has completed an application, and once they submit that application, they're now in IWDS as an inquirant, and we want to either say not suitable, decline to participant, recommend for enrollment. If you say not suitable or decline to participant, then there's no reason to send them over to the LWIA to have all this, entered into IWDS to certify the application. But if you're planning on sending that information over to have the LWIA certify their application in IWDS, then you want to select recommend for enrollment before they're entered into IWDS, okay? Because once you are entered into IWDS, we lock this area down. This recommendation is locked down because we had some situations where people were entered into IWDS and all of a sudden they were marked as not suitable or declined to participate. And that's not how it's supposed to work. So if you have a situation and you're looking, you're like, well, I can't recommend them for enrollment. Well, more than likely, it's because they are now either an applicant or a registrant. And that means that you're going to have to contact illinoisworknet.com. I'm sorry, info@illinoisworknet.com to tell us, or you can contact me directly to say, hey, I need these customers changed to recommend for enrollment because it's locked down, and I'll have to have my programmer update that information. Okay. So the process is they complete the application, you look at all the suitability information, you collect all the suitability information, including eligibility, documentation, all that kind of good stuff. You can schedule the person for an appointment with the LWIA so that they can go over, and go over all this information with them. You want to make sure that the LWIA is added in this contact list. You can just simply add them. You can see their meeting times. And then you can see their status, whether when their IWDS application was entered, the certification date, so forth. You have access to the goals. One person had a question about, I saw the information about creating an ISS, individualized service strategy. How do I update the goals again? And so it's right here, goals, and you can see the information. You can put the information around the training program, especially if they have more than one training program that they're going to go through. And you can click edit, and you can update this information. This is the information that came from their application. That's the goal section. With the barriers, we want to make sure that we're addressing all the barriers because it's really important to have those assessments up front to identify the different things, the different challenges that they're going to face that would keep them or make it very hard for them to be successful in the training program. So, whether they need child care or they need, something to help them with getting to class, or, if they have a language barrier, if they are homeless, different, whatever these barriers are that are going to help them from being successful in the program, they need to be addressed up front. So we want to start them off in a good place, with, as much going for them as we possibly can. So you review the different barriers, and then you can add services on, the different types of things that, need to be provided for this person, whether it's the different support services that are, within each of these areas, transportation, personal counseling, whatever, child care, whatever those items are, you can add them into the planned services. One of the things that you will want to make sure is that another question that came up. And this is, I'm sure a lot of people are just getting used to the terminology when we talk about IWDS and the terminology. When a person completes the application, they're an inquirent. Once they go through the process and they've gone and talked to their LBA career planner and all their documentation has been entered into IWDS and that's been certified, blessed by IWDS that yes, this person is eligible and they are now in the system, then they are called an applicant. And once that means they're certified in certified in IWDS, but they don't have any services yet. So these would say, like not started. Once that you're a registrant, once you have a service into IWDS, it means you're a registrant. Okay? So applicant, registrant, those are different terms that are terminology related to the IWDS application status, and they're important to understand those. So if anybody needs additional information on understanding the difference between an inquirant and an applicant and a registrant, we can put that together for you. So just let me know in the chat pod if that's something that you would like us to, we'll need to do it anyway for this next round of group that comes in, but if you'd like to have more information on that, then please let us know.
Natasha, we had a question related to, they had paid work experience prior that has not been uploaded in the system. We really need to have all paid work experience included in the system. And there could be workarounds that, I don't know, we've done this for another grant. So if you had payrolls for the last 2 or 3 months, can they do that in one upload as long as they have the dates correct?
Yep.
So then potentially, and you can call either myself or Natasha, we can work with you on this. So if you have a backlog of this, we can do it so that you do it in one upload as opposed to doing it for each payroll.
It's really would be about, if you're in here, if you had it for, you can put it whatever date, January through March. You can do it for that entire time period. And then it's going to download the template, and it's still going to look like, it'll still look like this, except the pay period would be like January 1st. This would be, and then you just have their total number of hours.
You still need to enter all the employer information in the worksite placement area, but with a payroll, then you can just do it as one upload to get caught up.
Yeah. When the downloads the template, where is it getting? It's getting information from my workNet, whatever you have entered into my workNet, because your customer is associated with the job, the organization, the employer worksite. This is their my workNet ID. All this information. The only thing that you have to enter in is this.
And can you show them where the employer information comes from? That's on the worksite placement screen, correct?
When you add your worksite information, all these people are associated with these employers. So when you add your employer, when I added my my employer, this is like the information that was added at the time for this employer. Like the one I just added today, past March. right here. Okay. Are there any questions related to worksite placement? We went over how to add a work employer. We went over on how to add a worksite. And if you follow this, it'll continue to say, it'll work you through adding an employer, adding a worksite, adding a job. Once you have those added, it'll give you a line item here. And then you can add customers to that area. This comes from your listing of customers you have access to. If you want to see the people that are already associated with those jobs, you just click on the link. You can edit them from that point in time. That's just one way to do it. The other way is to go to that customer's, their information. You'll notice they're in your customer's information right here. There's a worksite placement, and you can go to their tab and update their position information at any time. When you're on the individual level, you see all the information that's been uploaded for that individual. There's all the worksite placement. Here's all the payrolls that have been uploaded for that particular person. Okay. Any questions? Is everybody clear on the suitability piece? If I'm a registrant, can you update the recommendation? Be brave. Somebody type in the chat. No, correct. So if you have to update this because you have a person that is an applicant or a registrant, then you should contact com or me, correct. Okay. We go to the progress page. And we add services. Whenever I add a service, does this one right here where it says source worknet, does that one get sent to IWDS? Be brave. Correct. The answer is no. If I just say this is an Illinois WorkNet source, it's only staying in Illinois WorkNet. If I change this and say this is a WIOA funded service, it's being paid for with WIOA money, I submit the request. So when I hit send request, that goes to the OEA Career Planner to be requested to be in IWDS. How do I know that this was entered into IWDS? What's the source say? Okay, so yes, for a request sent, it means it comes from, it's sent to IWDS. And whenever I know that it's been updated, very good. And whenever I know that it's been updated to from IWDS, you'll see that the source has changed. It'll change to IWDS, so correct. Okay. And then another quiz. Is an inquirant, has an inquirant had their application certified in IWDS? correct. The answer is no, they haven't. Has an applicant had their application certified in IWDS? Yes, very good. Does an applicant have services entered into IWDS? Okay. An applicant technically doesn't have services entered into IWDS. Once they turn into a registrant, then you know that then they have services. So pretty much that's kind of a trick question because applicants don't usually stay applicants for very long. So as soon as they're been certified in IWDS, they're an applicant, and they stay an applicant until they have a service that's entered into IWDS. Okay? So does a registrant have services? Yes. Okay. Now I have a little bit of information that I just want to make sure everybody knows because it's not, you may or may not know this bit of information. Now and I appreciate you working with me and participating on the responding to the applicant question. So once a person is an applicant, they need to have services entered into IWDS within 45 days. Okay? Because if they don't have services entered within 45 days, you're going to have to recertify their application, and nobody wants that, right? So it's just really important that once you have your person in there, we need to make sure that they have a service in IWDS within 45 days. And so once they have that service, they become a registrant. Now, and Jim, correct me if I say this incorrectly. Once you're a registrant, you need to have a service within, I'm going to say every 90 days. But, you know, if you don't have a service after 90 days, then you're going to change to exited. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes, Natasha's got it right. If you've got a client, if you enroll them in a service that is closed, like let's say you enroll them in individual service strategy, which is a same-day service, so it closes, you have to open up another service within 90 days. The client cannot go 90 days without a service. So it's important to understand that your client must be getting served in order for them to maintain registration status. So you did perfect, Natasha.
Okay, good. Yeah. I just wanted to, I know it seems like I'm going through this a little bit slowly, but I just want to make sure everybody's clear on those different statuses because a lot of this is new terminology for a lot of people and some, you know, it's a lot of information. So I appreciate you going through that with me. But I know we're at noon, and I've used up all the time that I've been allotted for today. But if you have any questions, just let me know, let us know, and let me move this out of the way, because I did promise that you could check in if you haven't already done so. And other than that, hold on a second, I have another question. Okay, supportive service or stipends, biweekly or what time? I'm not sure.
And I'm checking into it, Natasha. I'll get an answer to you guys as quick as possible. I have a feeling it's based upon potentially local policy, but I want to follow up with our fiscal office on that.
Okay, and then the next one. So what about the end date into future? If you're referring to the job placement, I'll probably just have Cody, make sure that that's not required. And at that level, at the higher level, that's what I'm just going to do. So you don't have to worry about it. I mean, in the future, right now, you can put it out there if you're going to do it today. But I'll add a card for Cody at the job level. So not at the customer level, but I have this open up for the job level. Now we're looking at this level. When you enter in like this, I have 8 openings. I'm going to make sure that Cody doesn't require this end date. Actually, they both say they're not supposed to. So maybe if I don't put either one date. Anyway, I'll have them make sure that even if you put a start date, that neither one, I'll have them fix it so you don't have to worry about it. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. And